I think we're nearing a spot here where those quarterback transfer portal dominoes, if you were to exhale a little bit too heavily, or maybe you just bump it with your elbow, you knock one of those dominoes over, the right guy commits, and we could just see all the domino effect go into reality here pretty quickly. What do you mean by that? Well, we'll talk about it right now, but first things first, make sure you're subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. If you're watching this in a one-off video, it's from our live show that we do here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern. Want y'all dialed in for that, okay? We want everybody in here during the live chat, having a good time. College football community. Want y'all a part of it. Best way to do that is subscribing to the channel and then being after it in the live chats on the live show. So we appreciate y'all so much in advance for that. So where do we stand right now when it comes to this transfer portal quarterback market? I think we've seen some big names commit, but to me, some of those commitments I would define as carpool lane commitments. For example, Riley Leonard to Notre Dame, Tyler Van Dyke to Wisconsin. Not that they didn't have an impact, but they're not significantly having an effect on the flow of traffic when it comes to this transfer portal quarterback market. Because there's a couple of teams still that are obviously very aggressively looking for a transfer portal quarterback. Sounds like Nebraska is in the market. Sounds like Miami is pretty heavily in the market by having Will Howard on for a visit and having Cam Ward in for a visit at the time of us being live right now. USC, they've made some noise looking for a portal quarterback. You'd imagine Ohio State's in the sweepstakes. So all that's to say, there's, I think, a fair amount of teams that still want to acquire a transfer portal quarterback, but the music hasn't really started yet. We had Dylan Gabriel knock over a impactful domino in committing to Oregon, but even that feels a little bit siloed to me. It takes a team off the board. It takes a big-time quarterback off the board, but the real domino that could change the entire complexion of where things stand right now in the transfer portal quarterback situation is if Cam Ward decides to commit. Because whenever and wherever Cam Ward commits, you're going to see that fuse lit for a chain reaction. You'll see a ton of other commitments happen pretty quickly. You'll see a lot of teams scramble and try to find their guy. Like at that point, the music is turned on and Cam Ward just turned it off and everyone's got to find a chair. Okay, like at that point, everyone's looking for their guy and it becomes a pretty high sense of urgency. The pressure, I think that the pipes burst at that point for where you would find yourself if you're looking for a transfer portal quarterback. And if you're a quarterback, your options become, I think, a lot more limited by nature of Cam Ward committing. So let's walk through some hypotheticals here. Because you'd imagine if Cam Ward commits, one, a lot of teams' top guy on their board in the transfer portal quarterback situation is off the board. And then also for a lot of these other quarterbacks, whether Cam Ward commits, more than likely takes one of their destinations or one of their preferences off the board. So that's why the urgency kind of speeds up here. The options become a lot more slim for both sides. So to give you a better idea of what we're talking about here, hypotheticals I want to walk through here. Let's just say Cam Ward commits to Florida State. Okay, I'm not calling my shot. I'm not predicting that. I'm not telling you I have any intel. There's buzz around Cam Ward maybe visiting Florida State, maybe not. But let's just say for the sake of this conversation, he commits to Florida State. Well, at that point in time, what does Miami do? Because remember, Miami had a quarterback in Will Howard in for a visit previously. I think that probably turns up the pressure on them, and they go and try and grab Will Howard because they don't want to be left out in the cold. And then what happens to DJU? Because DJU was visiting Florida State. Let's say that Miami lands Will Howard. What happens to USC? Because they were interested at one point in time in him. They've shown they're aggressive in the portal quarterback market. Who do they go after? Who do they still like? Let's say that Cam Ward commits to Miami. Okay, what does Will Howard do? Is Will Howard going to USC? Is Will Howard looking somewhere else? The whole thing is really interesting because it's going to compound on one another. The whole situation, as soon as Cam Ward commits, again, that pressure gets dialed up all the way on a lot of these different teams, specifically those three quarterbacks, Cam Ward, DJ Uiagalelei, and Will Howard, by nature of the teams that they're talking to. Now, what happens to DJU if Cam Ward goes to Florida State, I think is fascinating because I'm not sure who else is in the DJU sweepstakes at this point in time. There's been pretty, they've been pretty good about keeping it close to the vest, has the Uiagalelei camp at this point in time. So as options decrease for teams, I think you'd see two things happen. One, you'd see some teams fold. Say, you know what? We wanted Cam Ward. We're not going to get Cam Ward. That's all right. We like our depth chart. We're going to roll with who we have in that quarterback room, and we'll just go from there. That's the first thing. you'll see teams kind of bow out. Very, very possible. From Ohio State, maybe I'm like, hey, Devin Brown also is a pretty good player too. We want to see what we have in him. Lincoln Keenholz, think he can spin it. Maybe we'll see what we have in him too. The other thing I think you'll see happen is we'll see teams show their hand with how comfortable they are when it comes to their quarterback depth chart. Because as options decrease, you start to get desperate if you don't like what you have in-house. So what that would look like to me is you see a team take somebody and it kind of gives you this reaction of you're like, wait, they took who? Wait, what? They took where from what? Like that kind of response just tells me, okay, they really don't like what they have in their quarterback room, to the point where they settled on getting a player that, in our opinion, was of a lesser caliber. Not a good look. Not a great situation you find yourself in going into spring football. And maybe we see them dip their toe back into the water if there is some transfer portal quarterback options post-spring. But that would tell us a lot about where these teams stand as it pertains to their roster. And so I think the thing to really watch here, and I was talking to someone close to the whole portal world, and he was saying, listen, man, I think there's a possibility that with the whole Cam Ward sweepstakes, some of these teams are going to hold out so long to where they whiff entirely. Meaning teams that need a quarterback and they think it's Cam Ward, they got Cam Ward written down no matter what on a sticky note like draft day, and then they don't land Cam Ward, and then they go back to their roster and say, oh boy, this is going to be tricky. It's going to be a long road for the boys. So we'll keep an eye on that. But again, as soon as Cam Ward commits, head on a swivel. You'll see multiple other commitments from other big-time quarterbacks, especially Will Howard and DJ Uiagalelei is my gut if he ends up deciding on his next destination. That's where the whole music and the musical chairs, that whole situation really becomes very real once he decides where he's going. To put it simply, Cam Ward has got the remote to the stereo. Whenever he stops the music, a lot of guys looking for a chair, and there'll be a mad dash from a player and a team perspective. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.